July 12, 2024. This is the S&P 500 E-Futures Mini on the 2000 tick chart using NinjaTrader 8. This is what the chart looked like today. There was this consolidation in the pre-market. Then there was this big rally, kind of another consolidation area, another smaller leg rally, a small consolidation, and then a sell-off. There was two times where economic data came out, which was 5:30 Pacific Standard, which is right here. You see this crazy spike down in recovery, all within like, I don't know, 1 minute, 1 to 2 minutes. That was a core PPI number. And then at 7 o'clock Pacific Standard, which is about right here, you can tell there was kind of this reaction, a sell-off to the EMA, but then prices resumed the original trend. And that was the preliminary consumer sentiment. So what's really interesting, this big red bar here, that is the all-time highs that was reached yesterday in the pre-market. So you can see this is the pre-market. There was a lot of price action yesterday. I thought it was a little more challenging for me. And today you can see from the lows, it pushed all the way back up almost 90 points to actually break, I think, one tick or couple of ticks above the all-time high. So today the all-time high was actually made in regular trading hours as opposed to the pre-market. And I would say for most of the day after the open, I was playing this, well, not most of the day. I had these ever evolving trading ranges, trend channels. So initially in the pre-market, it looked like it might have been a trading range, but then on the open and early on, I thought I was trading this yellow up channel. Then you see prices break out here, and they didn't really come back. It bounced. So then I started looking around and I thought I found from not this big spike, but from this one, this purple up channel, which, first the yellow one touched pretty well, 1, 2, 3, 4 confirmations. And this is kind of me discovering it in real time. Then when it broke out and stayed outside for a while, I started looking for another channel. I was playing with a bunch, and the ultimate one I settled on was 1, 2, and then a third touch here. This purple one was more through and established after this third touch. And then I kind of made the top of the purple channel resistance up here, and it wasn't really confirmed. It had kind of 1, 2, you could argue for third touch, maybe starting from here, but definitely confirmed here. At that point, I was pretty sure this purple one was valid. And then this black one, or this outlined black one, doesn't come in until right here, because I see this break 2 legs down. It bounces, looked like it was bouncing out in the middle of nowhere, comes back up, and then it kind of bounces again. So that's where I kind of searched and found potentially this black up channel. And the black up channel actually fit pretty nicely in the resistance side. Top side, it fit really well here, a couple more times here, but it never came back. And then it was later confirmed to be, I think, a valid channel because it was just trend lines at the time. And in real time, I just kind of have a lot of lines going on. It seems pretty messy, but it makes sense to me because in real time, I'm adding new lines. So I remember which lines are valid, which lines I'm looking at. So anyways, this is post regular trading hours, me cleaning up the charts and then kind of talking through what I saw. So it was this black up channel that I was playing. So as you can see, it started shallow, became more, sharp, and then it kind of became wider. And then there was this kind of consolidation area. I saw this trend resistance coming down, trend line resistance, but it never really turned into a channel. I'll explain later just because I couldn't find a good support side. And then later I found this. After these 3 touches, I found this trend line coming down, and I was playing with the opposite side as support for quite a while. But, well, not quite a while, just during the time of this, because at first, it was actually way up here first. But then it violated pretty strongly, came up, and then pushed down a second time. So then I dragged it to here, thinking I had a decent confirmation. Then it broke out, potentially a breakout, comes back up and pushes again further down. That's where I dragged it down to here. And so whether it's actually here or here, it doesn't matter at this point because this is more towards the end of the trading day where I don't want to take trades anyways. And so overall, the trading today wasn't quite as challenging as yesterday because yesterday I was seeing all kinds of things, doubting the setups. It was just choppy. This one felt a little more deliberate. I wouldn't say it was super easy, but it was a little easier to see and find setups. Took a total of 2 trades. They're in quick succession. The first one was a loss, and the second one was a win. And I'll get into those trades when I get there, but just go into the trades right now, go into the chart review. So pre-market, just disregard this black channel, these trend lines, these trend channels don't exist. There's right now just this trading range based off the lows and the highs or where I see consistent touches. But at this point, I'm thinking it's going to be a trading range. Prices open and they start breaking above the pre-market high. So I'm thinking maybe there's going to be a failed breakout. It gets kind of just moves around. And here I see a new high, first entry long pullback, second entry long. Now it's pushing back. EMA is not super reliable yet because there is some violations, but it is showing a bias. It is starting to trend bullish. So it comes back down. I did find this as a potential support trading range. And I thought this is a breakout and a matching failed breakout on this side. And it's coming back down. I saw this as a potential higher low because I saw like two legs down, one pushed up. So I counted this as a localized high, one leg down, push up, a second leg down. I did see this as coming off a bounce at the bottom of this potential range. It's a decent signal bar. The thing that made me hesitate, even though there's enough room to the top, is I'm not confident that this is a clean trading range because at the time the trading range could actually be lower. I didn't really have this clearly defined, this uptrend right here, but that's okay because this is really early in the day. There's only 5 minutes in. So when you see this 5 minutes in, yes, all kinds of trend lines and trading ranges can be drawn. So me having doubts about this trade, I think was okay. What would have helped me maybe try to enter this trade is not only this is a pretty decent bullish bar, it is at the high of this pre-market trading range, but this pre-market trading range is already coming into question because it looked like it could also be dragged from here up to here and potentially up to here. So I wasn't too worried about, potentially buying at the high of this range because I don't trust this range. What I do want is this bar to close at the very high and ideally, even though the EMA is a little ambiguous, close above it. It just kind of keeps adding in more reasons to go for the trade that you're looking for as opposed to like, well, it could act as a resistance, maybe, maybe not. It could be at the top of the trading range, maybe, maybe not. So it's just like things going for it and things going against it made it ambiguous. But I look back and I thought maybe there was a trade here, possible trade, pushes up, it starts moving. So I'm still playing against this yellow up channel at this point. But I do draw this orange up channel, but there's no trades to be found. It touches pretty nicely, one touch, two touch, three touch, and it touches pretty nicely at the bottom. It's a little off, but you could pretty much say it's one touch. This is arguably kind of a second touch, maybe a third touch, maybe a fourth touch here, but it's confirming it's respecting this line going up, especially after this bounce here. Only a first entry long here. Second entry long, this isn't a good signal bar. You'd have to be trusting the strength of this yellow up channel. Keep in mind the purple doesn't exist yet, so ignore it. So it just kind of keeps moving up. I'm just watching and waiting. It's riding high on the top side of this resistance, so it looks pretty good. It finally breaks out. So I'm expecting a price push back into here, maybe a breakout, pull back, or actually a breakout, and then push back. But now I see the EMA is hitting the highs of this yellow trend channel going up. So it breaks out and it's coming back down. So I'm watching carefully to see what it does at the EMA. It breaks at the EMA, but it kind of bounces and continues up. So it's bouncing off the outside of my yellow trading trend channel. And at this point, I was drawing other lines here, trying to find another potential trend channel going up. So I initially had a trend line, this one touching, and almost touching here. But right now, at this stage in real time, I only had this yellow channel that I really kind of trusted. And then I had a few test trend lines going up and trend channels. So when I was working with these smaller ones, prices move up. So then I see, okay, there's one touch, two touch. There's potentially something here. So I drew this and I matched it, because I was thinking maybe there's a touch here, touch here. I need a third one here. And here, it's a little bit not as strong believing in this touch here, but here for sure it's touching twice. Prices consolidate into this trading range. It just looks very, very tight trading. It's only within like about 3 points. Candles are pretty big, so it breaks out of this uh, trading range, and it looks like there was a support being respected here. So I thought this is a possible trade too, because I saw this as a failed breakout. I did see a new high, first entry long pullback, second entry long confirmed. Also looks like two legs down. Now this is, there has been previous breaks of the EMA, and this is the first break of the EMA for kind of a little while. I do like that it moved one tick down and then flashed up. So that had, uh, I like that. The only thing that would have made it even better is if it closed at the high or at least pushed up above the EMA. So I thought it was a possible bounce, third confirmation of this purple up channel, but it just recently happened, right? And it's below the EMA. The signal bar isn't the best, but the trigger bar did completely engulf it, so I like that. But I wanted a higher low confirmation, ideally above the EMA, to feel more confident about taking this trade. So I'm watching and waiting. It pushes down, and you kind of get a higher low confirmation here. It broke above this guy, but now I'm at the top of my trading range. Also, this is the highest the price has been for today, so I'm feeling nervous about buying right there. The high of day, it's a decent signal bar, but it's just there's no room, so I had to skip it. Prices then continue moving up. So right now I'm thinking, okay, this yellow up channel that was shallow is played out. I'm now playing this potential purple up channel. I'm expecting prices to come up and touch the high side. It kind of keeps moving up. I do draw this green, smaller trend channel, and it does touch. I mean, depending on how you drew it, but it's a pretty good estimate that it did touch. It comes back up and it touches again. So I'm thinking, okay, this momentum, if it's still on this green, it could potentially break out. And if it breaks out, it might pull back. It's pretty far from the EMA though, but I don't know that I necessarily want to go on a short trade. I'd probably look for a failed second entry short, bounce off the EMA, and a continuation upwards because I do not want a counter trend here because clearly the bias is pushing up. Like yesterday, the bias early on was down, then it just got noisy and confusing. Today, there isn't really as much confusion. Prices are there's very tight trading, not many setups, but it's not as hard to decipher. So it kind of starts pushing down. I do see a second entry long here. I see a new high. Go ahead and zoom in. It's a first entry long just right here. Pullback, second entry long. I thought this is a possible trade. This is a break of this green up channel. It wants to test the high. It's the first attempt up. Pullback. This could be getting ready for a second attempt up. I also like that this signal bar is only 4 ticks and it made a double bottom, so it couldn't break through. It didn't really bounce off the EMA, but this could be close enough. And it's a rather small risk because you'd only be risking 6 ticks. And so I didn't take this trade though. It pushes up and there was enough room to the high. And I was thinking, is there a chance for me to try to get in on this trade? You get a higher low here, but I wasn't really sure about this higher low. I wanted to touch the EMA and bounce back up. It's a decent close, but as you can see, you don't really have any room to scalp out now because it did push above the previous all-time high, not all-time high, previous high of day here by 1 tick, came back down. It's making a second attempt. Who knows if it's going to really break through enough for me to get my scalp because from here to here is only 3 ticks, and I needed about 4 to 5 ticks to ensure I get my scalp. So it was just a little bit risky. So if I didn't enter here, I saw this and I definitely didn't want to chase it at that point. It does break through, chops, comes back down, comes back, tests the EMA again. It's just kind of chopping sideways, comes up, and now it looks like it's respecting some kind of resistance here. It touched once, now it's touching twice, broke above, came back through, made another attempt. No clean setups. It's still obeying the purple up channel because it didn't break through the high side. It technically hasn't broke through the low side or closed outside of it. It's still moving up. So it's like, okay, I have a lot of confidence in this channel being very defined that this is what the price action is doing. So now I'm just looking for reasons and setups to go long, but I am weary of the fact that I'm already testing the high of day. It's coming back down. Now it's like the first, well, not the first, but it's closing outside and it's kind of showing a little bit of weakness because it has so much space up here, whereas previously it was kind of moving from the top back to the bottom, back to the top. It's didn't even make it back to the bottom. It keeps pressing the top, but now it's hitting this resistance. So that made me weary. Prices then come sharply down. I'm not really sure what happened here, but it flashed down like this in a few minutes. It breaks. I'm thinking a break of this orange channel is probably going to test this low, and technically did it here. It continued, and it starts reversing back up. I see this as a second entry short and a possible trade because this is a new low. First entry short pullback. I like that it moved one tick up and then totally engulfed this indecision doji bar and closed not only below it by 2 ticks, and very bearish. I would have really liked if this had actually came up and touched the EMA and flushed down. So even though this came down, tested the lows, second attempt down, I was thinking there's enough momentum here to create one big leg. Maybe this is one attempt up, pull back, maybe a second small attempt, and maybe a flush down. So this is a potential trade, I thought. It would have worked. Comes back down. So now I'm questioning what's going on. So this yellow up channel was useful early on. This purple up channel was useful pretty early on. But now I don't think prices are necessarily going to come back up and test this highs yet. So I saw 2 legs down though, and I don't have this black channel drawn yet, but I did have this black trend line just as a test line from down here, because I did have a test line, it was cutting up. The way I kind of approach it was early on I had something like this, and then as the prices evolved, I had something like this, and it looked like it touched here and here pretty well. Then I had something like this, and all the while I'm testing other trend channels. And eventually I had something like this, and it broke out, and I said, okay, maybe it's something like this. So it became the bottom section of this black trend line up. Looks like there's 2 confirmations, but since they're so close together, it's actually, I just kind of see it as 1 touch and then 2 touches. I need either another few touches here to feel confident about this line, because I don't really like my first swing to be so far from that initial line. And this is based off of a spike. This is like a knee-jerk reaction and then going. So I'm basing the strength of this trend line going up off a kind of like a spike, whereas these previous ones had these nice touches. The prices are continuing moving up. It hits the EMA. I'm wondering if the EMA is going to actually start acting as resistance. Pushes through, consolidates, actually breaks up, and I saw this yellow up channel. And this is actually where I saw a new low. First entry short, pullback. I see a second entry short here. Second entry short pops up, and this second entry short fails. So it's actually a new low. Right here, it's first entry short, second entry short. Second entry short failed when this candle closed. So I actually got my trade ready. I said, there are 2 clear legs down. 1, another attempt up. 2, maybe this could potentially be something, but I like that this failure happened here. On top of that, this yellow up channel needs to test the high. So I thought, okay, I definitely want to get in on this trade. Now this candle is 2 points, and my stop has to be 1 tick below here. So to reduce my risk, I know my stop has to be 1 tick below. I don't want to enter 1 tick above. That just increases the size. I'm going to enter 1 tick above this guy. That's what happens. It actually opens up here. I thought I wasn't going to get the trade. It ticks up, flushes down, picks me up 1 tick above here, does a bunch of stuff. I'm thinking, okay, let's see what happens. It closes right near the EMA. I think I'm safe. I don't have this trading range drawn just yet. And then the next candle flushes down very quickly right when it opened and takes me out. So that was kind of like a bummer. So I thought, this was, because I'm expecting a test of the highs here, and this candle was kind of, it drew me in. It said, look at this. I opened, I never even ticked below, and I closed way at the high. And from here up to here, there's enough room for your quick 1-point scalp. I entered, and unfortunately, this trade didn't work out. So I did have this black line here at the time. So it flushes and it kind of hits here and it starts bouncing. So it closes here. So this is actually, so this first trade was a red trade. The second trade, I'm going to admit, was a little more emotional because I just felt like, hey, I'm pretty sure it's going to come back up and test the highs. This trade didn't work out. I thought it was relatively high probability, or at least high probability enough. I'm more experienced traders would probably read this and think, what was I thinking? But at the time, with my experience level, I thought this was a decent setup. I ended up being red. I'll admit I was a little triggered. I eventually did have this trading range drawn, saw a failed breakout, corresponding failed breakout, and I also saw a high, first entry long, second entry long. It needs to test the high here, so I quickly entered on this candle. But why it's an emotional trade, and in hindsight, I should not have taken it, is after I lost this trade, I actually doubled the size of my trade, which really isn't that much because there's only one contract. So I doubled up to two. And I said, okay, I want to, get the loss back. And I also not only doubled it, I increased my usual profit target by a few more ticks to ensure the loss here would be covered by a profitable trade here. So those aren't really the best reasons. It wasn't fully thought out, but it was a little more emotional. And I was, in this case, I think lucky because I entered here before this thing fully closed. If it closed and I didn't take the trade, I would be doubting it because it closed at the lows, even though it spiked up and down. So I will admit this one was lucky, especially based upon the scenario I was experiencing. I was emotional. And I was lucky, because I also extended the usual profit target. So it's a lesson learned. I had to be more careful. And this one, it did work out because I was thinking, I'm pretty sure I'm right that it's going to come back up and test highs. It does, and it kind of consolidates and it continues moving up. Comes back up to this high of day area. It's testing and it starts breaking up and out. Starts breaking up and out. I'm drawing this new yellow up channel. There's no clean second entries that I can find. And I'm not thinking short at this point. I'm just thinking all long because the whole day has been long. I think this two-legged correction has played out. Now it's going to continue up. Plus, I was wondering, especially at this point, if prices are going to go back up and test the all-time highs, the highest that the E-minis have ever been. And I was expecting it to at least push up to here, not necessarily push up and through, but at least get up to this red solid line. I'm just watching this as a potential, maybe a quick scalp short trade. Comes up. So I'm watching, it hits it, it moves up by one tick. It's deciding whether it wants to actually push through. It moves up by, I think, 2 ticks, and it starts reversing down. So I'm thinking, okay, this yellow up channel is very strong, but this is the all-time high. There's probably a lot of traders lining up to squish the price back down, but this is a 5708 isn't very significant. I mean, it's a significant number, meaning it's all-time high, but if it was like right at 5700, I would think there's a lot of people with their, profit targets or whatever all stacked up here. So I was just watching. I was wondering if it's going to come up and test the highs. It comes back down, hits the EMA, and starts pushing through. It starts consolidating, comes back up, makes this push up after this break of this orange down channel, already tested lows, pushes up on this yellow up channel. It kind of pushes up, breaks, tests its high, gets really noisy, it starts moving down. At this time, I'm thinking, is there a potential support and resistance? Am I going to chop sideways before it decides to continue up or flush down? I do see a triple test. I did see a new high here, first entry long, pullback, second entry long. Technically, it's a third entry long, and I didn't like that it broke below, but it was a triple test. But this wasn't a good enough setup for me, unless, this candle is only 6 ticks, but it needed to be even smaller and close more bullish for me to even consider a trade here. Pushes up, and it actually creates so I drew this trend line after, this third touch, but I didn't have a channel yet because I wasn't sure where it was going to be. But I did see this as a new low, first entry short. Technically, it makes a second entry short here, but then it makes a second entry short failure. So it was a little ambiguous. I was concerned it was going to hit this resistance, so I had to leave it alone. But I did mark a black arrow because in real time I was debating and scrutinizing whether there's a trade here. Chop sideways. It looks like it's just range bound. It's completely neglecting this as a potential trading range or channel because I was playing with something like this and then something like this, but it ends up being kind of a nothing. It was just more of these small little tight short trend channels. It hits the bottom and now it looks like it's ranging, but it's losing bullish momentum because there's more space being created above this potential range. It comes back down, follows on this yellow down, orange down channel, breaks, comes back up. I'm looking for a potential test of this EMA. It breaks above the EMA, and I do see this new low, 2 legs up, first entry short, second entry short. I thought this is a possible setup. It's 2 legs clean up. This black up channel, it had just come from a very strong, very all-time high that's ever been. So I'm not necessarily sure it has oomph to start pushing up, especially when the EMA is starting to show resistance. So I did see this as a possible trade, though, that it could be coming down short because it's 2 clean legs up, could have a correction down. The thing I didn't like was it's entering the last 30 minutes, and I wasn't quite thinking to try to take any trades on the last day of the week, especially at this late in the day. But if this shown up earlier in the day with more time, I may have taken this. Prices continue moving down. There's no lower high confirmation for you to feel, you know, try to enter the trade afterwards. Breaks out of this yellow down channel, keeps moving down. Price is just selling off now. I believe and trust this as a resistance. I also saw this as a new low. It's technically a first entry short, second entry short, third entry short, but I saw this as kind of a localized low, first entry short, second entry short. So it looks like there was a channel of some kind, maybe like this or something like this. And I saw it as a break, as one attempt down, second attempt down. Unfortunately, this signal bar isn't very good. If you took this trade, I felt it was very aggressive because there's only 15 minutes left. I like that it was a double top rejection. So try to break through here. It didn't quite touch the EMA, so it did flush down though. The signal bar isn't very good for a second entry short. So I did like that it flushed down pretty strongly on the follow-up trigger bar. But if this, I want to take an entry, I'd wait until this one closed to ensure it's moving down. So when this one closed, I think if I wanted to enter, I would try to enter probably one tick below this guy, right about here. And it looked like if I did do that in this hypothetical, I probably would have gotten the fill and would have gotten the scalp. But that's neither here nor there because I didn't take the trade and it's too late in the day. Prices kept moving down because also the other thing going for it was the EMA was starting to hold. Prices kind of go down and kind of get really noisy and choppy into the close. So overall, it was an interesting day, definitely easier than yesterday. But although it had these nice big gradual moves, volume was a little less. There were a few setups. I guess a handful of setups. The first trade that I took, I thought was decent. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, and I should have walked away at that point, wait for something else. But when I immediately jumped in on the second trade, yeah, the second trade definitely was not a good. Wasn't it was more based on it was affected by emotion, and I broke some rules. Like I doubled up the size and also moved the profit target up, where I should have just accepted the loss, slowly grind back the points to put myself back to where I wanted to be. So hopefully that was helpful.